Oh dear.
Hello, tubes. Lord Crocosquirrel here with the lovely Kata. Hello.
Hello, B.
All right, and we actually had a very helpful suggestion at the beginning of in the comments of our last podcast. A gentleman by the name of Skid Row Trash to see if we could bring the Indie Bros on, and we reached out to Erik Johnson here.
Hi, it's good to be on with you guys.
And for this industry interview, we're going to grill the nice man. How's that sound?
Amazing, just amazing.
uh, so
Yeah.
let's have a look. So why don't you, for those people that don't know, how about describing the Indie Bros and what they do? What you folks do?
Sure. The Indie Bros was something that was born out of my friend and work colleague from Arkin Games, Josh Knapp. I actually still have some ties to Arkin Games, but it was getting to a point with one indie developer studio that it wasn't just, weren't making an ends meet for my current situation. When I started with Arkin, I had a fiance and no kids, and now, as I mentioned before, I have a wife and two kids now. And so the money situation was a little bit getting to a point where I needed to find more work, and I had to basically make a decision if I was going to continue to work within the indie games arena or move out from the games industry entirely. So at that point, I had spoken with Josh. We were talking about it and trying to figure out what to potentially do if we were to strike out on our own. We weren't coders. We could help with programming here and there and help with some design here and there, but we weren't designers. We weren't coders. We had helped Arkin in really a jack of all trades sense. So anything I had come on with officially as the marketing and PR guy, he had come on as the QA and community management guy, and that's basically where our focuses were. But we would be all over the place, however we could help. And that includes getting into the actual code and level design and all that. So, we picked up a lot of things there. I had started in 2011, and Josh, I think, had been there since 2012 or 2013. And so, a few years ago, we started Indie Brothers, and not really in earnest. We just started working with other developers that we knew that we were close with, and said, "Hey, do you guys want any help with the tasks that we helped Arkin with, the marketing, the PR, the QA, the community management, social media management, all that, basically anything they needed, even that includes business representation with like platform holders such as Valve and Humble and GOG, PS4 or Sony and Microsoft, and then also running public shows, showing at PAX." GDC, things of that sort. So we started working with a couple of developers just, that we had met through mutual contacts or just, had befriended through the industry when we were with Arkin. And then that sort of snowballed. We worked with a couple of notable developers, some titles including Tales of Majayal, Duskers, more recently RimWorld, and Cooks Are Delicious too. And so basically every time we work with a variety of different developers all the time, we are usually moving actively 5 or 6 games towards release at a time. Sometimes that's up to 12. We'll go through, in the last year or so, we probably covered about 50 plus Steam releases. But at the same time, a lot of times we'll be working with just developers over the long haul towards, if they're in the middle of an early access release, or if they have a 1.0 release, but they want to continue to have a lot of post-launch development and coverage for that, then we'll stay with that developer for a long time. But anyway, to wrap it up, we basically have gotten to a point where our games were pretty notable, had to have sort of opened the door up a little bit to before we were the ones sort of reaching out and trying to stay in business. Now it's a happy problem of having a lot of developers come up and ask us for help. and assistance, and we have to decide, how to best spread around our time to make sure that everybody's getting the most out of our efforts. And yeah, it's been a really cool thing. The one thing I will say is that it's a tough industry right now. The market in 2018 is very challenging for developers, which I think is why a lot like Indie Brothers is let's just say Indie Brothers wouldn't be successful if a developer game, even if you have a really good game. So it's good to look to additional support if you can get it.
Oh yeah, if you can get it, certainly that would be helpful. So what do you make of the situation over at Steam right now? Do you have a preferred platform for pushing games out?
Well, Steam is still the top dog for PC as far as as far as we're concerned, as far as the games that we work for. And the marketplace has changed radically over the last 5 years and really over the last 1 year and 2 years. There have been radical changes.
Well, has it been a year? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's if you want to get into the details, there's of course, Greenlight turning into now Steam Direct, which is where you can just sort of purchase your way onto a Steam release as opposed to going through a curation system, which is what they used to have. And so, yeah, it's definitely different. The approach to a Steam release. I can tell you that when we released AI War 1 back in 2009, I believe it was, and I wasn't even on Arkin at that time, but I believe that was the 130th game on Steam or something along those lines. So a very small number of games on Steam, and there was a guarantee of exposure, a guarantee of sales at that point. That just doesn't exist anymore. For a platform release, you cannot rely on your platform holders like Steam to be your main source of exposure until you've sort of proven that you're worth exposing further, I suppose. If your game is really popular and good, you have to kind of have both going for you.
Let me ask you a question, Erik. For example, in 2017, speaking only about Steam, they released almost 7,000 games. So it's a very competitive market. How, for example, having a PR helps a person that is developing a game? It's in its initial stages, middle stages, last stages. How can this help the developer?
Right. So the name of the game is getting recognition of your game when it's ready to go. So once it reaches in pre-release, once the game reaches a threshold where you feel, hey, this is, as a developer, this is good enough to share publicly in some form and fashion, maybe previews, screenshots, trailer, whatever we're talking about. You want to get it out there, not too early, but as early as you can, getting players, getting fans, getting potentially interested parties to see the game, to recognize the game, to sort of get to know the game, so that when they hear about it again, if you have, say, a launch day announcement months later, they go, oh yes, I remember this game. At that point, the Steam store page is now, it's a coming soon page, so you can now wishlist the game on Steam. There's those kind of avenues that you want to be pushing for as we're trying to get press sites and to cover the release date announcement, and we'll maybe send a preview copy if we don't have the release build ready yet to YouTubers, streamers, and any other influencers that would like to take a look and potentially give us some exposure in that pre-release period. Generally, that's, if we're talking about a very quick run-up, that's usually 2 months or less from releases when we're starting to get that into people's hands and get sort of the release hype built up. And that's all in effort to launch big. And what I mean by launch big is when you hit Steam, for the first time, that first 24 hours is crucial if you want to gain additional exposure from that storefront. You have to have a certain amount of your impressions convert to sales if you're going to move up the seller's list and essentially catch the eye of Valve's algorithms, which are saying, you know, how are you doing versus these other new releases? Essentially, how are you competing against the other games that are released right at the same time? Which, as you mentioned, with 7,000 new releases a year and more, and it's going to be a lot more this year. That's talking about, you know, dozens of games a day that you're competing with. So you're trying to essentially on that first day outpace them. And then it gets into a sort of a bigger pool. Okay, now that you've outpaced your new releases, how are you face to face with other kind of top sellers and things of that sort? And that will decide sort of the long-term ramifications of exposure, of sales, basically just sales on the long tail, but also if Valve's interested in exposing your game further and doing promotions with you. That gets you front page featuring, which is basically a world of difference than running your own personal sale that is not on the front page on Steam. So really, we try to emphasize get started as early as you can. If a developer usually has enough on their plate that they cannot do this work in addition to what they have already to do. So that's where Indie Brothers comes in. And we try to fill in the gaps and say, okay, you haven't been able to do this so far, but you really need to be doing this. This kind of exposure, or these kind of releases and outreach to individuals, to fans, to audiences that are going to be geared towards whatever game or genre we're talking about. Those are things that you really want to hammer home pre-release. You want to have a fan base. You want to have like a community built around your game pre-release if at all possible. So when it comes out, a lot of those people hitting your Steam page right away already know they're purchasing it. So that conversion rate is higher and you get a bigger payoff. So there's a lot to that. We do help devs that have released games that have not launched well to try to recover. I can tell you that that's a really uphill battle in comparison to building up towards a launch and hitting that the right way. It's difficult. It's you have to fight for every inch right now. And what I mean by that, fight for every sale right now, until you get to a certain point at where it kind of gets a little more of a viral nature, and maybe things get picked up and the sales start really pushing themselves. But until then, it's a grind. It's an absolute grind, especially if you're not an established developer, you haven't had previous releases or aren't notable, and you're just new. That's a really tough task right now.
How do you keep track? Do you have your own metric for keeping track of how well the game is selling, or do you rely on Valve's algorithm?
So we're optimizing all the time, and I will say that like all of our systems are not as good as they could be. One of the things is contractually with developers, we may or may not actually get sales data from them. They may say no. They might be. We have developers that are sometimes just super guarded about their data and their information, and they say, "Well, we just want you to do the marketing and PR, and don't worry about the sales numbers, and we'll pay you." And that's kind of it. And so we don't get a whole lot of information from some of our developers. From others, they'll actually have us run their backend system for them on Steam, for like Steamworks system, and we'll have more access for that. So lately it's just been about taking the developers that have given us the access to that information and deciding how to work with it and how to optimize. But to answer your question, we're more or less relying off of Valve's algorithms, at least for a Steam release, of course. There's other things that we focus on too. We do mobile releases, we do console releases, and we do have Humble Store and GOG releases as well. But PC is definitely, we're very much wrapped around what Steam's doing, and as if you've been a developer, if you've been a reviewer or a fan of Steam or a player on Steam, there have been a lot of changes, and it's pretty consistent, the changes that they make. You have to be on your toes and ready to kind of pivot and say, okay, we were going this direction. They were really emphasizing, hey, focus on say Steam Curators, which is one of their features that they have in place, which essentially like allows people to curate outside of Steam and say, hey, these are great games, and they have that kind of connected in. For a while there, it was a really big thing. And then for a while there, they were like, forget it. It's not important at all. And now it's a really important thing again. So you really have to be able to kind of go with the flow on that and not be too upset when you go, wait, what? They just told us they didn't care about that. Now they do care about that. So you have to be able to not freak out when that happens and say, I have to make an adjustment. I'm not just going to keep doing the same things over and over, because that's, I think, a trap in PR and marketing in general, is to just kind of consistently do the same exact thing for every particular client. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I can't imagine where that would make a lot of sense. But then again, from what I've been seeing of Valve, not much does. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I do remember that we had a series there for a long time called the Greenlight Gathering. And Valve said, well, we're going to retire this in a while. And then like 2 weeks later, went, and it just fell over dead.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to understand what's going on there sometimes. You just kind of trust that if you need something, that you're going to hope that you can get through to somebody. That's the nice thing, is that they're still, despite, I'm sure they're, I can't imagine how some individuals at that place, how busy they must be. Despite all that, they still, at least from my perspective, communicate well. And if I need something, as far as a private communication, if I need something, now, I'm not talking about necessarily publicly or any announcements. I don't have a comment, I don't have as much a comment on that. But as far as if I actually am concerned about something, need something, have a question, I've been at least semi-pleased with the fact that I can still get a response in 2018 from Valve.
I'm surprised you can. I mean, what are you talking about? 7,000 games this last year, and we're already on track to exceed 10 this year. Just, wow.
And that's another service we essentially provide, is that since I have some level of be able to communicate with these platform holders, that's as good as gold to some of these new developers who have no in with them. And so it's just a question of how Indie Brothers can help a developer, and sometimes it's not at all. And if that's the case, no issue there and no big deal. But if there's usually some deficiency going on, whether it's the marketing, the PR, the community management, social media marketing, or just thinking in general about your business decisions when you get to 3 months out of release, 3 months after release, etc.
Well, and then, okay, you mentioned community management here a minute ago. Can you give me a rundown of actually how that would work?
Well, and sure, Josh is our community management focus, so I'll try to fill it for him admirably. We generally will run Facebook campaigns, Twitter campaigns. We'll do forums. We run like private forums. Of course, the Steam community hubs are a big deal and important to have someone moderating those. And then some new developments, for instance, is like Discord. Discord is suddenly this really popular tool, not just for kind of private teams or whatever, but to kind of bring in the whole fan base. We did that with Cook Serve Delicious. And I couldn't believe how many people joined in, and we have a channel that basically is just sharing food photos and
food porn.
Yeah,
porn.
And so every game is different, and I think Cook Serve Delicious, the original game, was really popular, and that certainly benefits that when we started that Discord, how popular it got so fast. The Tooth and Tail guys, Pocket Watch Games, I believe, they have a great article up on Gamma Sutra about how to leverage Discord to build a pre-release community, which I think is super, super savvy. So if anybody's interested in that, definitely Google that.
No, I'm actually a member of a few of these communities, mostly from a review, mostly from the. I'm gonna watch and see what's actually gonna go on here. Again, I'm a reviewer. I can't like go jump in on a fan Discord and go, hey. But I have to admit, I'm a terrible person. I've been sitting on a copy of Cook Serve Delicious 2 for a while now, and I just haven't gotten to it. Oh, I'm terrible.
Well, that's okay. I mean, it's there for you. We just released on Good Old Games yesterday, so we're really excited about that because we were originally rejected, and so it was sort of a big deal to get that turned around. They have sort of a reputation, a tough curation reputation. So we got through that, and I'm really pleased to have those games on there. That honestly feels like I actually did something in my life right there. So that was cool.
I know the feeling. I've heard all kinds of things about GOG's curation process. I really wish Steam had still had it. Oh, some days. That's all right.
For a developer, having a PR company doing this community building work is a great benefit because usually the developer is so involved with their baby that the feedback from the community sometimes may be overwhelming. And I think this is a great thing, the part of the community building, because it helps, for example, a completely newbie developer can get some knee-jerk reaction of something that was said, and having you guys, I think that's
yeah.
Well, that's
if I ever go back to developing games, I'm not gonna. I won't run the forums myself. There are some rules involved there.
But that's a great point. That if you feel as a developer that and this is a hard thing to know about yourself, but if you know you're gonna not react really well to criticism, especially if that criticism isn't necessarily worded in the most polite sense. It's important to put someone between you and that respond button. And you can, you don't want to react too poorly. I think, like you said, we talked about before this podcast started, we have these kind of discussions to kind of clue people in a little bit more who are on the outside looking in. And not necessarily understanding the effort that's put in. Because if anybody puts an effort for a long time, shows something to someone and they get a negative reaction, that hurts. I mean, it just does. And what happens next is really up to the two people involved. So it is or whoever's involved really. So it's a great point that the developer needs to know. Okay, and also it's not just about protecting yourself. There's great information that you're going to be getting from these pre-release fans, potentially testers. Hopefully you have a testing group that can form out of these folks. So it really goes both ways. You want to support anybody who comes into your arena, even if they come in a little bit mean or have strong words. If you feel, hey, I have a response to this that will hopefully, show them what's going on, where we're heading, and hopefully alleviate some of their concerns. I've seen a lot of people won over by being upfront, honest, staying cool, and just communicating as a person. A lot of people don't understand or expect developers to respond all the time. So that can be a thing of put a little bit more kind of sass on it when they comment. But I think for the most part, I remember when I first dealt with negative criticism like 7-8 years ago, and it was way more emotionally impactful than it is now. It definitely is an experience thing. You got to get used to it. So it doesn't hurt to have somebody who has essentially taken their lumps before to take a few for you.
I can imagine why that would be good. I've actually developed visual novels in my day, and well, yeah, getting hammered like that is no fun at all. So back to you again mentioning back to the idea of testing groups here. You guys actually do QA. Which one of you is it that actually does that? Would that be you or Josh?
Josh focuses on it, but we all kind of pitch in. We have contractors as well, so our team is anywhere between 5 and 7 members, depending on who's all kind of in that month, and depending on how much work we have to get done. So if we have a lot of outreach to be done, or if the quality assurance that we're doing for a game is rather involving and requires, or if there's like a multiplayer game or something like that, we need to have additional testers. We'll bring those folks in. Josh is our QA lead for sure, and but at the same time, I've been involved in most of the QA and testing contracts that we've had. It's actually a lot more fewer and far between than the marketing and PR. It seems to be that's the big people don't understand how to do the marketing and PR as much. The QA kind of says, yeah, we can do that, or we can get people to do that, or find friends or what have you to sort of help out with that. So we're asked less to do that on our own. We are asked more to maybe coordinate testers or kind of be the lead or the head of a testing group. But a lot of times it's something that the developers feel they have a handle on, especially comparably to marketing and PR.
Well, it's always been my experience that you don't ask your friends to do your QA. You ask people that are at least slightly antagonistic in your general direction.
That's definitely important. That doesn't mean everybody does that, but they definitely should.
Because if I sent one of my visual novels, for example, to my mother, of all the people to send such a thing to, right. She said, "Oh, this looks really good." I'm like, "You're not helping."
So you want to think of it as milestones.
I was expecting criticism.
So you start with milestones, right? So the friends are like the very, very first. I'm going to share this with somebody other than like outside of my room kind of thing. And then from there, once you get some legs under it, and preferably they'd be industry friends and people who are true friends give you that honest feedback instead of ones that you're just going, I just want just people to look at it and say that's awesome that I did something. You want to get friends that definitely will give you that criticism. And then from there, of course, look for people who are reviewers or testers or things of that sort that are willing to give you that kind of feedback early on, because their advice and their impressions are valuable for you going forward.
So I don't object to that kind of thing, really. I've actually had a few games sent here. That were not in the ideal condition. Like, okay. Yeah. I'm going to email you with what I found. You might want to think about these things first before you ask me to review that, because now it won't go well.
Right, and in a perfect world, from the developer perspective, we're sending you this privately and saying, we're not looking to cover this yet, but we know it's got some things wrong, but we wanted to get your feedback on this particular feature or that kind of feature. But what happens all too often is that developers think they have a completed or more feature complete kind of thing than they have, or there's more bugs to their build than they want to really admit to, and there's a level as far as what you can get away with issues and lack of features or a bug here and there, but you really don't want to send anything out to press or reviewers, any kind of influencer, with the idea that they're going to publicly cover what you send them if it's in any kind of bad shape. And I think that's what you're kind of getting at.
The infamous bug number will not fix.
Right.
Batman Arkham Knight. Yeah, that came immediately to mind. Warner Brothers still has a bunch of the stuff that says bug number will not fix. Can't be bothered. Too expensive. Moving on, please. We still have DLC to sell these guys. And we're not done with that.
And that's a big difference on the indie side, is that one of the best assets you have as an indie developer is being a cool, nice person, and not screwing your fans over, your players over in any way, helping them in whatever way you can, endeavoring to make them happy. And that includes the pre-release community of 6 people that are like super interested in your game. Make those people happy and things will grow. I think there's a lot of, people try to get was it the cart before the horse or whatever, but sometimes with how to expose and get sales for your game. It has to start small, and you have to work with the people that are there right away, because they will give you the indication on how big your game can be.
Let me ask you another thing that interests me. Of course, you are also fans. You love video games. That's how it's probably started.
Absolutely.
But, how much time? How do you juggle the time for? Because this seems kind of almost a 24/7 job. And how do you juggle the time between your personal lives and networking, doing everything that you had the agreement with each one of your clients, and also living a normal life, having your hobby, even it's only gaming or something else? How do you juggle this?
That's a great question. Not well at first, I can tell you that. I was really pathetically bad at it. It's something that I've worked on over the years. It's something that I've worked on particularly over the last couple of years, as my family has become my family, as I have 2 kids now. When I started in the video games industry, I really didn't have a whole lot of background for it. I just had to kind of just learn a lot and spend a lot of hours, and that didn't bother me in my early 20s, middle 20s, and all that. But now that I'm in my early 30s, it's different. There's things that are much more about how much can I get done in the time I have during my work hours and my day. As far as playing games goes, so there's a lot of there's times of the year where I won't be playing any video games outside of what I'm playing for my clients, as far as testing or looking at a new build and saying, okay, this looks good to go. And that can be pretty tough, but there's times where I think I do have an ebb and flow as far as my personal interest in gaming and games. It has waned at times, and it has flooded at times. Like it's back right now, as my daughter is 7 years old, and she's going through all my back catalog and retro games and all that kind of stuff, and she's like getting me all just excited to play those again with her. And so I definitely am finding more time for that, but it's about setting from from this job and this whole freelance business. It's really about setting boundaries, and making sure that your clients understand, I'm going to be available, these times or dates. And, obviously communication is key. And, you want to establish that you're going to do a lot. You're going to go out there and do what you can for the developer, do whatever you can, really is really what we want to establish with the developer on that relationship. But we also don't want to just be walked all over, and be taken advantage of, having to answer emails or messages in late night or things of that sort. And at times it's not something that I'm adverse to. We work with internationally, so we have actively working with developers in Eastern Europe, Western Europe, even over in Asia. So we stay busy. As far as when I wake up in the morning and see what's going on, what's happened over the last 8 to 10 hours. But it really is a balance, right? But it really is about pacing yourself. Burnout is very easy, I think, to do, not just in our jobs and development and the industry that we work in. It is very easy to get passionate and forgetful about being healthy, and push too far in whatever endeavor that you may be interested in doing, whether it's covering games, making games, helping sell games, whatever the case is. There's no handbook or kind of rules for the road on that as far as how much can be done. So all you have is the examples around you to look around you of other people and what they're doing. And some people work their ass off. Some people work way too hard, probably. And people feel like there's our industry standards, and that's always been that's like a whole another topic, is overwork and working too hard and all that kind of thing. For me, people who will survive long-term in the game development scene and in the game industry in general, search for life balance. They don't try to just go 10 to 15 hours a day all the time, 7 days a week. That's something that I had to basically pull myself away from. I was married to that for that sort of approach for a long while, and it was hurting things. It was hurting things personally for me. I had to absolutely make adjustments for my health and for my relationships, personal relationships, and all that. It made a big difference for me. And then it was all about, hey, but how do I still get the most out of what I'm doing if I'm not working as many hours and stuff? So it's really been about optimizing, not just like how I do things, but like my task list, how I approach that. It's all very calculated now that compared to where it used to be. And at the same time, I have to kind of go with my personal flow. If I don't feel like doing something and I keep forcing myself to do it, even if I don't feel like it, eventually I'm going to hit a point of burnout. So you have to be really careful.
Burnout is a serious thing. Yeah.
And it's a great question. Like I said, it's a great question.
All right. So let's see. How about the whole living up to the expectations thing? How would you kind of follow on?
Sure. So to me, it's about when I started, it was, I didn't really, when you start marketing and PR, and the reason usually people hire indie marketing and PR, indie developers hire marketing and PR is because they don't have, they have something, but they don't have enough of a budget to go, just buy a bunch of advertisements or do it in a way that they can kind of guarantee some results. So instead they reach out to somebody, they pay them less and say, pay them less than they would pay for like an advertising spend, and say, I'm counting on you to use your relationships and your efforts to help, boost this game's exposure and ultimately its sales. And that doesn't happen all the time. We have a lot of successes and we have just as many failures as far as the end result that we were trying to get with the sales. Sometimes we'll get great exposure on a game and the sales will just not convert, and they won't develop. Most developers are understanding and say, hey, you did what you guys did, your job, and it just didn't work out. Some developers get upset. Sometimes we find it hard to just get a game exposed. So it really comes down to, and this is also the idea of using your time effectively, is going down the avenues, and I mean any avenues, is metaphorically avenues, that pay you off, that are success, that show you that there's success down these avenues. So if you go the YouTuber streamer way and it's not really working out, do you give up right then and there, or do you say, maybe it's just not for this audience? Maybe my game is not geared for this type of audience. And then where can I go? Where are discussion boards? Where are audiences that are looking for my type of game? Because maybe my game isn't good for video-based content. That's a tough hill to climb in its own. But there are games like that, and there are games like that that are successful. So it's really about looking to expose your game to the people that you think, hey, these people are really going to be interested in it. They're going to want to go and wishlist it. They're going to want to go and buy it when it's available. You can get great coverage from really big YouTubers now, and they don't convert a whole lot of sales if their audience isn't really geared towards the game they're pushing. It's I don't know if it's a super recent phenomenon, but everybody's talking about it like it's super recent, that direct from YouTuber like links or direct from press like sites like linking to the Steam store page are not converting as many impressions or sales as they used to. And I don't necessarily think that indicates that they're useless or that they're not worth going after, but rather the way people in general purchase and consume products has massively changed in the last few years. It used to be very much a feeding frenzy and buy whatever you want when you want, and it's going to be on sale. It's going to be awesome. And now people are really, really careful with what they purchase. There's a lot, like you guys mentioned, there's a lot of good games out there, so people can be choosy. You should be able to, as a player, be choosy in this market because there are so many options for you. You're looking to find the best version of whatever genre, game, or whatever mechanic you're looking for.
Well, that would be a thing. So actually, here's a question. It's a little more dear and dear to our shriveled little hearts, because we're actually quite cynical people sometimes. How do you determine what going through some numbers and working on, how you pick and choose the YouTubers or Twitch streamers or other similar creatures?
So going back to when I actually used to do this work, and now I have somebody on my team do it. We have, and we do this for clients and just kind of on our own in general. We'll take a genre or a game, and we'll see kind of the games, if it's a new release, like say if we have a new release coming up that's not out yet, and we'll say, what does this game kind of compare it? What is this game kind of comparable to? And can we look for press outlets, individual writers and reviewers, and YouTubers, and of those nature that are interested in these kinds of games or in this type of game? And there's many reasons why people cover certain games. You may not, because they're not there. Some writers aren't looking to cover the same thing twice, so that's not necessarily like a foolproof approach, but I think it's a good way to start. Is try to look for people that are following similar games. As far as numbers go, we're not like super hard fast on any particular like subscriber numbers or view numbers. Obviously, subscriber numbers can be misleading in certain cases. Or not, maybe not obviously, but that's something I've definitely learned and experienced over the last few years. We're looking for folks that are active and that are interested in our game in any way. We'll send to the big channels, and if we think we have any shot with them, we'll definitely add them to our list, or we already have obviously a database that we can refer to for contacts. But if we're trying to stay relevant, that's a big deal. So what I mean by that is if we're working with a puzzle game, like a 2D puzzler, we're not going to be wanting to send it to a bunch of like PUBG influencers. That makes zero sense, right?
No,
yeah.
that would be terrible.
Right.
See, that's that's the kind of game you would send to me.
Right.
Because I do those.
Right. So, but my point is that's pretty obvious. But my point is that when you have that, you want to know, okay, we're going to look into our database and see who covers this genre. We want to see who will give this the time of day. If we send them an email with a Steam key and some information about the game and the trailer link, are they going to give us a fair shake? You got to have, at your core, you have to have those kind of folks on your list, regardless of size. Really, if they have any kind of audience at all, that can turn sales for you, then it should be something that you're interested in pursuing, and that's what we do. It's still important to get big channels, no doubt, and you want to find the biggest influencers relevant to your game or genre, but it really is about finding folks who will try to who really will take the time to champion your game.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we have talked prior to the beginning. It's people have their niches, have their favorite genres, and what is fun for them.
For example,
yeah, absolutely.
I think that when you reach out for YouTubers, it's about reaching out to people who would have fun reviewing that, even if there is something to point out regarding, there is a bug. I would think that this and that could get better. But even so, it's people that are having fun with that. I think this is important.
Yeah, there's a real satisfaction when you marry a game, the right game to the right influencer. It's an amazing feeling when you watch their video and then like 2 minutes in they go, oh, actually, oh my gosh, this is great. And you're just going, yes, we found somebody who's really, really interested in this, and that, they may, well, even if they don't take it further than this coverage, their passion shines through in that coverage, and that makes a difference to the viewers. I think that's not something that can be tracked, or there's no metric for when somebody's a little bit more into your game or passionate about talking about your game, but that does make a difference to me.
Well, it's a matter of keeping track. It's a matter of maintaining your communication and figuring out where the links are.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure you don't take a day or 3 days out of your week to just sit and watch YouTube videos.
Well, you always get the nice response, and it's part of the social media. Like, it's part of our grind to reach out to someone, send them a key. If they get back to us, that's great. If they don't, and they just take the key and cover, that's just fine as well. We have no issue if you don't want to communicate with us. That's no problem. But a lot of times folks are awesome, and we have a lot of warm contacts, and they'll want to send us a link of the coverage. And, they know we're busy, but we're not the ones that necessarily they're interested in sending it to. They're like, pass this along to the developer. Or, if the developer's interested and we can lend them, the benefit of doing this, we'll retweet them or mention it on one of our social media platforms.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of benefits both sides, and there's no reason not to do it.
So how often do you send keys out and they just never reply or never do anything with them?
Oh man, it just depends on the game, I guess, really. But if you have, say, a 20% response and coverage rate, which is to say 20% of your list has either responded to you positively, like we're going to cover this game, and or just straight up covers the game. That's a really good number. That's a really strong number, especially if you get into like the thousands of contacts, and that's 20% is particularly strong. 10% is pretty standard for us, and we still pat ourselves on the back if we get to 10%. 5% is not unusual at all, and less is certainly not unusual either. It definitely depends on the niche, and to make sure that, again, you have the right contacts in place for it. Because I'm sure that we've had some lists that weren't as optimized as others, if that makes sense as far as the relevancy of it.
Perfectly. That makes total sense. Again, if you wind up with a couple dozen PUBG players in there, and you're trying to send off an action RPG, you may not get quite as much response.
That's right.
Because an RPG is never, ever, ever, to my knowledge, been as active as a battle royale or a straight up fighting game or anything like that.
Right. And while I'm saying all of this about building your contact list out with, relevant folks, you shouldn't be skirting or ignoring the fact that you should be making personal connections where you can as well, whether it be online, on Twitter, whatever the case. If you can make it to public shows, and if you have the ability and to do that, to go shake some hands and go just, meet some people face to face, that can make a big difference for you as well as a developer. To have, and that goes for really anybody in the industry, not just influencers or reviewers, but also, platform holders, other developers there's some really popular indie developers out there that can certainly make a difference for games by mentioning them on their Twitter or whatever the case is, and saying, go buy this game kind of thing. So there's a lot of that our approach is to be really open and, hey, who's the best folks to approach this game? And sometimes we have a game that we go, hey, you know what, the developer community would love this game. They're the folks that they are included in who we need to be reaching out to.
Well, they should, even as developers, they should at least be playing games occasionally. Helps.
Well, and I guess my point is that if you feel like you have some design element that's really interesting or intriguing, you go, okay, I bet you we can get some folks on the development side of this, or the designer side, to take a look and maybe talk about it as well. And that can be worth your time. Again, talking about avenues that are worth your time investing in, and seeing, you're just taking a look. Is this worth our time? Is it yes, no? And then deciding which way to go at that point, and pivoting, or, obviously going all in further.
Well, that makes sense to me.
Any predictions for 2018 gaming scenario?
Oh my gosh, I just go with the flow and just feel like I'm just getting rolled around in a tide. Without any kind of surfboard or anything like that, just by myself. But I expect a lot of the same that we've been seeing in the last year. I feel like we're going to have a lot of, as far as the increase in releases. I don't think that that's going away. I think that from the player perspective, I've read this in a few spots, and I think I agree with it. It is a golden age if you're a player, or if you're a consumer of games. I feel like if you're willing to put in some research to find your dream game, it's probably out there, and that's a big deal. That's not ever been the case ever before in history. So that's pretty cool.
I don't know.
I think that's pretty special. But at the same time, if you're a developer, if you're a designer, if you're working on the industry side, you're trying to get attention, and especially if you're someone new and trying to establish yourself, there has to be passion for you. This can't be something that it's like a money-making endeavor or whatever. You're just kind of not that interested in it, because it's going to eat you up and spit you out in most cases. There are always exceptions to that, but you have to be really ready to face realities if the game doesn't sell well, or if it doesn't take off like you expected. You have to be okay with that and have a plan to move forward off of that. I feel like those folks are the people that are still in the industry that maybe haven't had that big hit, or maybe had a big hit a long time ago, but are still around, and they've muddled through, or whatever the case is. They've released maybe good releases, but not something that hit the same viral level. They're still around for a reason. It's because they're actively planning ahead. They're ready to, again, we talked about pivoting and having to kind of improvise at times. And they have passion. They don't want to work anywhere else. They don't want to do anything else. So this is what they want to do, and this is what we'll continue to do. And that's kind of, I think, how we're feeling, certainly on, with Josh and I when we were leaving Arkin. And that's certainly our approach with Indie Bros, is that we would rather stick around and help folks. And we have our own personal projects as well. We have our own passion projects when we have time for them, of course, like we talked about. But as long as we're helping other folks, deliver quality products, and especially from the indie game corner, that's something that I have a lot of pride and a lot of passion for.
I don't know. It sounds like your tide's starting to sound more like a tumble dryer, because it's got to seem like that at least once or twice.
It's been insane, and like you said, being tossed around has just by changes and shifts in industries. But I think the right approach is to say it's about having some self-criticism, taking a look at yourself, and really making sure that you're making the right decisions, and that you're not just expecting things to fall into place. I think that's a big issue, and still nowadays is that developers just expect, once they get their game complete, things will just fall into place for them.
So basically, 2018, it's a great year to be alive in terms of video games.
I think it's
just as long as you're not Digital Homicide or someone that's trying to be them.
Right.
There's a couple guys that could have used a PR firm.
Right. I don't want to make any sweeping projections about 2018, but January hasn't been the worst, so I'll take that.
Oh, we're only about halfway through now.
Sometimes the year takes some time to kick in.
There's going to be, as far as releases go, as far as major releases and really interesting games to play, I mean, February through May is going to be insane. And summer will have some releases as well, hidden gems of that sort. And then again, this is why indies have it tough sometimes, because their AAA still exists and still take up a lot of the space. And boy, there's some big releases coming out this year too. So.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking forward to a couple over the next couple of months. Oh, that'll be fun.
Any final comments, Erik?
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a great conversation. I mean, it's gone really quick. This hour's gone really fast, I guess.
Well, theoretically, we still have about 5 minutes, but still. It's that psychiatrist hour, you know.
Oh, of course. Do we have any wrap-up questions that you guys would like to ask, or anything that any other information I can pass along?
I think I'm actually good at this point. I know we're going to put your link to your website in the description. Yes, folks, it'll be down there.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Game Connoisseur. I'm one of the worst follows unless you like retweets of indie games, and then I'm one of the best follows.
Well, you know, indie games. We do indie games. We do AAA games. We do all kinds of games. We used to do really crappy games too, and I don't want to do those no more. That was Burnout City. Holy no!
Yeah.
It's like I covered most of Digital Homicide's games, and I did like 7 or 8 review the developers on them. It's like every time they turned around, they were doing something stupid.
Oh. So do you guys have any current reviews in the pipeline?
We actually have quite a bit. We actually have quite a bit in the pipeline. I know I've got a huge backlog right now, which of course includes Cooks Are Delicious 2, because I'm a terrible person. We just got a couple of them today. Give me a second. Let me grab those.
This time of the year, Erik, is complicated for us because we live in different countries, different hemispheres, and we are currently experiencing a 6-hour difference.
That's the difference between Rio and Seattle.
So sometimes we really get behind our work. There is lots of stuff that we want to cover, but oh my God, he's waking up and I'm going to bed, and it's kind of like.
It's like walking in a circle with 2 people, and one person puts down a paper, they walk around, the other person picks it up. You know, it just kind of keeps going like that instead of the 2 people ever getting to ever, meet or talk. I understand that all too well with some of our developers in Europe and in other areas outside of the U.S.
Yeah, actually, just in the last little while, we picked up Fantasy Crest Solitaire, which I don't expect to be doing for very much of. Solaria Moon, which is actually looking like a better game than I'd expected. I've seen a few games like it. I just haven't seen it done quite this way yet. I haven't started playing it yet, so that's kind of that might be a thing. There's a first-person RPG based on Meriwether Lewis. That should be fun.
Interesting, nice. What are you guys playing right now? Anything fun? I've been out of the loop for the most part, other than like it's kind of like going through my old records and CDs, right? I'm going through my old video games with my daughter. So
yeah, I've been doing a bit of Kerbal Space Program after the weekly challenge on Tuesday. What else have we got going on? I've actually got several pieces. My general when I game for myself, I usually do a lot more RPGs, escape the room type games, puzzle games, that kind of thing. Not just throw together a jigsaw. No, we're talking about proper puzzles.
Right.
Yeah, I buy lots of puzzles and then I throw them Crocosquirrel's way because I lose my concentration. We have a shared library, so you do this.
I don't want to. No, I'm gonna watch. We have had that argument so many times. You don't know. I also do a lot of visual novels when I've actually got I've got a real good stretch of time just to kind of sit and futz with things. Mm-hmm. I'll sit here for several hours and just click through a visual novel because that's a really fun way to relax sometimes.
There's lots of fun to be had.
But then I come from a background where I come from a background of writing sci-fi. So
right.
So you can imagine you can imagine some of that. But then again, I was also alive to see the first release of Zork.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and not only was alive, I was actually able to put my hands on a copy. You know, the original Bart Sale games. Anybody remember those?
See, but you have pride in it. That's the point. Like everybody goes about. Oh, it's like, no, man. That's a good thing. We need to be reminded of certain things, especially as the digital noise gets louder and louder, right? So
I'll tell you what, though, if I have to play one more Game Guru, throw the assets in a pot and just shoot them all, I'm gonna scream. Ugh.
Well, you'll have to be very discerning about what games you plug in, though, because I think those are out there now.
No, they've been out there for a while now.
Oh no, but I'm saying that now that Steam Direct is coming, then I mean, you can expect them to kind of be commercial releases and in places that, like you say, that maybe shouldn't be as exposed on those marketplaces. When like you say, it's not made with love. Or anything of that sort.
Or anything even remotely resembling it. Oh, look, I have a bunch of assets. I can turn that into a 99-cent game, and the suckers will buy it just because it's 99 cents.
Nah, you can tell a difference when a person puts some time and effort and what you mentioned, love, in their game. Yeah, there is a difference. There is a difference.
Well, then there's one of my favorite examples. It's the difference between Depression Quest and another game we covered here just recently, and I forget its name off the top of my head. Indigo, that was it. INDYGO, and yeah, they're both on the same topic. They're both about depression, but I'll tell you right now, Indigo was by far the better game. It took a lot longer to make, I expect, and despite the fact that you've got one room, the whole game is in one room, but just watching the guy just slowly go to pieces is, yeah, that
crushed us.
Wow,
it crushed both of us.
Indigo, huh? Indigo. Okay.
Indigo,
yeah, it's a very good game, and especially when you have someone in your family with depression, or you suffer from depression, and you want other people to understand. Throw this game in their direction. It's an excellent game, but it's crushing.
Right, I feel like depression is up there with any other very popular, notable thing at this point. If you're not affected by it, you definitely have somebody else who's affected by it. So yeah, it's definitely something that.
If you want to educate someone on what depression is, throw Indigo their way.
Nice.
And
skip depression.
They will enjoy, but they will suffer. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Some of the best games make you suffer greatly, but yeah,
it's very immersive.
It's called it's the Dark Souls principle. If you are not suffering, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
And some people will indeed suffer to deal with Dark Souls. I know I have suffered many a time at the hands of bosses in Dark Souls.
Right, and that's a classic thing too. Is you don't ever want to give something that's just easy. It's got a challenge. Otherwise, it's like that before you even get to the PR marketing, that game design. A better challenge. Otherwise, it's just not gonna stick. It's just not gonna keep people coming back. It's the challenge. It's the like I have to get through this, even though it's really impossible at times. Or if I actually can get better at it, and I can see myself getting better at it, that's really meaningful.
Yep, I got another 16th of an inch off the board this time.
All right.
Maybe I am getting better.
Level up. Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's going to about do it for us. Thank you for coming, Eric. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate
it. It's actually been very insightful.
Yeah, thank you a lot. You were very informational. I appreciated a lot talking to you.
Well, it was awesome, and I mean, of course, I'd love to talk to you guys again sometime if you guys are ever open to it, or we can bring more of the team members on, and if you guys have any specifics or of course, any follow-ups, or if your audience has any follow-up questions, please let me know. I'd be glad to email it over, or however you guys like to pass it along.
Or we can do this again in a while, build up all the questions and fire them all at you guys at once.
Sounds amazing. I don't want to just show up on your guys' lawn and say, let me in. So it's up to you guys, like, for sure.
I don't know. You and I are in a time zone. You could, in theory, do that. You're laughing. I'm serious.
I know. I was metaphorical. You're always taking me so literal.
All right. So at this point, I think we're going to bid everybody farewell for now. Erik Johnson, ladies and germs.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Well, for now, and until the next time, be safe, be sane.
And let's make games fun again. See ya.
See ya.